So I'm recording, and yeah, why don't we go ahead and start? I unfortunately did not, even with all this time that we had between, I did not have time to draw out this on my watercolor paper, but that won't take me very long because it's a pretty easy, it's a pretty quick little sketch. Have you guys had an opportunity, or did you kind of wait?
Yeah, no, I have it sketched.
Okay. Jeannie, do you have it sketched?
Good to go.
Okay, I'm gonna go ahead. I'm just gonna switch. If you guys have got it sketched, I'm gonna switch over to. I'm gonna replace this spotlight with this one. I'll just let you guys kind of watch me draw this out really quick. I've got my my little sketch here, and then we'll get going. How does that sound?
That sounds like a plan.
All righty. So, a little claustrophobic here. And find the pencil base. I cleaned my desk off and then it got messy and I never found out where stuff was. Here we go. It got messy with new stuff. I know that sounds weird, but I feel like I don't know where anything is. Whoa, sorry about that.
Michael, it looks like we're going to use a lot of yellows and oranges.
We will be using that. We'll also be using some greens and blues and possibly some reds as well. But yeah, a lot of yellows and oranges. Okay, so let me just kind of plan this thing out here. So I've got kind of coming in there. Does that. A little more this way. Not quite that much. And that's not exactly accurate to what we're looking at, but it's close enough. And I've got a nice big kind of, I'm guessing that's like a Russian olive or something. Kind of right here. Towards the side. And then there's a whole slew of cool, this grassy stuff, which actually I think are like, I can't remember what kind of stuff that is. I used to know. So that kind of comes in there like that, and then come along. So like that. And then I can kind of start on this stuff. I'm gonna make this Russian olive or whatever this tree is a little bit bigger, I think. Can you all see what I'm? Yeah, I guess you can kind of see that. I'm gonna make this just a touch bigger. So it's just a wee bit taller. And I think that that's going to be kind of it's also going to be wider for me. I want to kind of, and that was kind of an uninteresting shape for me. So so then these other trees back here will come in, you know, kind of in there, and then this kind of group of trees up here kind of come in. I don't like that shape. Let's come back down that way. And then that kind of a trees back in the background here. And then there's this kind of open area here, which I didn't really have on my sketch, but it's going to be a little bit more open. It's also very grassy, so it's kind of this tall, like whatever this scrubby stuff is here. I've got a pretty good sized bushy shape here. And this has got some dark stuff down in here. Just kind of sketching that on. And then as I come up, I'm gonna change the angle of this tree. In the photo, it's going much more straight up and down, but you can see in my sketch, I kind of like the idea of it maybe leaning out a little bit. So that's what I'm gonna kind of do. I've got this trunk that's gonna come up. There's a branch maybe coming off like that. More branches. Guess that this tree comes up sort of like that. It comes up and straightens out a little bit. And there's this kind of nice little thing of light that comes through here. And then down behind this kind of big bushy shape. So I want to kind of save that. Looks like maybe there's a tree here in front of it. This one kind of has maybe a double trunk. And there's another one coming up like that. And this one kind of, these are smaller cottonwoods up here, and then there's kind of comes in. So there's some trees back in here. There's this, let's see, this kind of comes up a little higher, I think. Here, and I've got kind of a tree in front of that stuff. So and then we've got this last kind of final big tree, which I ended up kind of shifting some stuff over a little bit more, but that's okay. This guy is just kind of a whole slew of interesting trunks and branches. let's see, and then I'll have this kind of grassy, scrubby stuff come back down towards the. That'll be light. This will all be kind of dark. Maybe there's a little bit of light back up in there. Yeah. So really, all I've done is kind of barely sketch in some of this stuff. This is kind of more of a Russian olive bush, I guess, really. Well, probably shouldn't name it, but that. And then I'll just worry about these trunks and things back in here. They'll just kind of be. Kind of suggested back there. So that's really kind of it. Let's see. I think you can kind of see that pretty decently. And I'm trying to decide if I want to start with, I think I kind of want to start maybe with the, I don't want to start maybe with the water, at least, you know, I don't know. I think I'm going to wait on the water because I'm going to wait to see what my, you know, where I am with the sky, you know, I want to see where I am with this stuff before I start worrying about reflections and things, because there is a little bit of, you know, this isn't a, you know, a raging river or anything. It's just kind of a slow moving shallow river. So there are some, you know, there's going to be some reflections from the trees coming down in here. So just re-angle that a little bit. There we go. Yeah, I think I'm okay with that bit of a sketch. I don't know that I want this coming out so much farther. I think I want this coming in a little higher from the corner. So I'm going to kind of redo that real quick. Maybe come in. Yeah, kind of like that. So that I'm not. I don't ever want something like the river or a road or something to come right into the corner right here. I wanted that a little higher, so it's a big winding sweep of a thing. So let's see. I have not gotten anything wet. Let's see. And what I think I'm going to do is maybe start off with some of these lighter, well, I'm definitely going to start off with some lighter colors, but I'm going to put these lighter oranges and stuff into, you know, kind of in this area, some of this stuff. Then we'll probably come up in here and do some of that. Since these tree trunks are so dark, I'm not going to worry about taping anything off. They're really, really dark. So, you know, we're not going to really have any need to do any shading on them or, you know, any kind of texture. I mean, they're really very much like silhouettes, or actually really are pretty much silhouettes. So, okay, so let me just scroll. Oops. See, Chris, let me just kind of scroll over here. See. Got that a little too low when I bent it down to kind of see if I could zoom in. So, and I need, you know, I need a little space here, so I think I'm just gonna clean off some of this that I've got on here. Some of it can stay, but let's see, do I have any use paper towel floating around? No, let's use some of this Kleenex. So I'm just going to clean up, give myself a little space. I could have sworn I had a used paper towel. Kind of dry. All right, that's good enough. So what I'm going to do is start with I think, with a little bit of lemon yellow. And I'm going to use my 1-inch flat. So I'm going to have a little lemon yellow. I'm just going to start a nice little puddle. I have a lot of, since I just wet that, I have a lot of water in there. So I don't necessarily need to go back to the bucket. I'm going to clean that. I'm going to grab a little of my permanent yellow deep as well. Make a nice little puddle of that. Obviously, I didn't clean up all of this permanent yellow orange right here, so we'll just reconstitute some of that. And I think these are the colors I'm going to start with. I may use a little azo yellow as well, but we'll see. That's this yellow right here in the and it looks, you know, in the palette, it looks very similar to the permanent yellow deep, but it's a little bit lighter, I think. Same with Indian yellow, it's a little bit lighter. It looks very similar to, oh, you can't really see the Indian yellow, but the Indian yellow is right here in the corner, and it looks very similar to permanent yellow deep, but it's a little lighter than that. So it's kind of in between those two. So, and then the azo yellow is kind of in between the permanent lemon or the lemon yellow and the permanent yellow deep. Okay, so wash that out. Get back to it. Okay, so back to this. So I think I'm going to start off with this, just kind of the foreground, and really I'm just going to lay in some color. I'm not too worried about details or anything. I just want this color to go in. So I've got you know, a little lemon yellow there. I'm going to bring in some up into here because I know this stuff is going to be kind of, you know, tall. This kind of stuff here. Let's go switch to that permanent yellow deep. And put in a little of that. This is all just that that first kind of little bit of a wash. I'll use a little, or that was, yeah, permanent yellow deep. Then I've got permanent yellow orange here. I'll put some of that in. There's going to be a little bit of that up in here. So a little bit of that darker orange up here as well. So really, this is just a quick wash of color just to get that initial color laid in, that under wash of these lighter shades, lighter colors. Let's see, and then this is kind of, I've got quite a bit of light up in here. Just kind of, and I'll just lay in a little more of that. Then it gets kind of, it'll start to get dark down in here, so I'll just drop in a little of the orange. So that was the permanent yellow deep that I was using there, instead of the lemon yellow. It's a little further away. Didn't need to be quite as bright. That, let's go ahead back to that permanent yellow deep. And we'll just pull that across. If you need to, you can, you know, if you've got a smaller area and you want to switch from the flat brush to a round brush, that is perfectly okay. Make sure I have that. So I'm going to move to my number 6 just for the heck of it. And I've got just, you know, this is a fairly thin little swath of color and stuff in here, but that's okay. You know, it's going to be nice and light and orange and interesting up here, but then it's going to start to get darker as we get down into this area. So here's a little, there's a little bit of orange right here on top of that. Maybe that really should be, I think that really should be permanent yellow deep instead of the orange. So I'll just add a little of that as well. I'm not worried about details or anything. I'm just kind of plopping in some color. Let's go over here. I'm going to start with a little permanent yellow lemon. But I did pick up a little permanent yellow deep in there, so I just want a little bit of that. Maybe I'll try a little Azo yellow. Let's see what. Yeah, that's I don't really need that, I think. And then we'll just come down into this permanent yellow orange. Maybe even a little bit of, I'm going to drop in a little permanent red in a few spots just to kind of start that thinking about that shadow that's going to be in here. So there's a bit of red that kind of runs through this area here. So I'm just going to drop in a little of that, maybe even a little down in here as well. Got a lot of water right there. I'm going to pick some of that up. Let that run just to, I want it fairly light. Let's see, come back into that permanent yellow. This kind of grassy shape back over in here. Let's see, let's do a little bit of, just a hint of this little bit of that red. I can even grab a little opera and put some of that in here, just as a color variation before that dries too much, just to get a little bit, and then I'm going to add a little water, just to get a little bit of variation in those lighter colors. A little bit over in here, just a little opera. Give it a, yeah. So that's really not too bad. You know, it right now it just looks like some yellow blobs, yellowy, orangey blobs, but I'm just gonna use a little more lemon yellow here, just to kind of pull that up, maybe hint at this being just a bit taller, this grassy, shrubby stuff. But I'm getting some interesting texture in there. I got a little bit too much. I want to lighten that just a bit. Put in a little lemon yellow as well while I pick some of that up. Yeah. I think that's all right. I think what I'm going to do is just, well, since I've got that, I'm going to go ahead and lay in some of, brushes keep disappearing underneath the board there. I'm going to go ahead and lay in a little, I know I'm not going to like that right there. Right here. I'm going to start putting in some of this tree, you know, stuff up here. And for most of this, I'm gonna stick with lemon yellow and permanent yellow orange. At some point, I will probably drop in some pyro orange, just because of the way those trees back here, you know, back in the back looked at. I think this pyro orange, there we go. Pyro orange will add a little bit to that, because these are so reddish orange back there. But I want them to be start off kind of lighter first. So I'm going to do that. And I'm going to use my round number 10 for this. So I'm going to start with some lemon yellow. Just move that over there. Got a bunch of cat hair in my lemon yellow. Goofy cat's been hanging out. Okay. She likes to walk through my palette and drink the water in my water bucket. Okay, so I think it'll be a little easier probably if I start over here, since I don't know why I started right here. I think I just did. But I'm going to start with this tree, and I know that the my light source is over on this side, you know, kind of behind these trees, you know, a little bit behind these trees and coming this direction. So I'm going to start off with a little lemon yellow up in here. There's a really dark line there. Put there. I wonder if I already sealed it with the. It's all right that it's dark right there. It's not going to bother me too much. Just was really dark. So I'm just going to kind of bring some of this lemon yellow down all through here. I'm adding more leaves than are actually, in that source photo. I like the color, but I want it to be a little earlier in the fall when there are still more leaves on the trees. So there's a little lemon yellow. Now I'm going to bring in a little permanent yellow deep. Maybe too much paint and not enough water, so I'm just going to clean my brush out and just use water now to kind of pick some of that back up. Put a little more of that over in here. A little bit of glare on that. Figure out. Yeah, if I kind of shade that a little bit, you can kind of see what I've done there. Let's bring some of that down here. More of that lemon yellow. And again, this is kind of that first wash on these trees. We're not putting in a lot of detail yet. We're just kind of getting some color on our paper. And then we can build it up later. Definitely want, like in the photo back here, this is all just tree with, tree branches, just a whole slew of tree branches. But I want more leaves, so I'm going to add more. There's a tree back there that's already lost all its leaves. I don't want to do that. So there's a little lemon yellow, and now a little permanent yellow deep. Just kind of soften that up at the bottom. And all I'm really doing is just kind of moving the brush around, kind of not really using the very tip, but kind of if the bottom of my finger is the paper, I'm kind of putting, about that much pressure on it. So you can kind of see. Not a lot of pressure, but a little bit. I'm going to add a little darker orange just right in here. Just as a sort of a reminder that this is where it starts to, that tree's going to start to get a little darker around. And then on this other side of this kind of blue tree, we have a little permanent or lemon yellow, and then permanent yellow deep as well. Just getting some of that color down here. Permanent yellow deep just on top as this dries, just to give it a little more texture. That just started looking like a bunch of little dots. So I'm just taking my clean brush with water in it and softening some of those brush strokes up. Yeah. All right, so before that dries 100%, I want to add a little water because I know it's dried pretty good over here. I want to now start thinking about some of the darker color. I still want orange and stuff, but I'm going to switch over to, come on, there we go. I'm going to switch over to a lot more of this permanent yellow orange, but then I'm going to start introducing some other colors like this, like blue grays and purples and stuff down in there too. So let's come back over here. And I'm going to start adding just a hint of this in some spots. This is definitely going to be, this tree has a lot of kind of a dark rusty orange in it. A fair amount of that. Maybe even a little up in here. Put a little on there and then just get a clean brush and kind of, or clean out the brush and then take the water that's in the brush and make that soften a little bit more. Yeah. So I put some paint down again, felt like it was maybe a little too much. So I cleaned my brush out and taking just the water. There were a couple times where I thought maybe I had a little too much water, so I kind of wiped it off in this towel, which I really should be using. But I just want to soften some of this, some of that paint, you know, some of these blobs of paint, because really that's what they are, it's just little blobs of paint that I put down. I want to soften some of them out so they're not quite as blobby looking. But they still kind of look like bunches of leaves and they have an interesting texture to them. So there's another, you know, I kind of put some down, not really crazy about the shapes that are forming, because they're really just little spots. So now I'm just going to take a clean brush with some water in it and soften some of those back up. Might even take just a hint of pyro orange just to try it out over here on the side, just to see what that looks like. Yeah, I like that. So I'll add some more later here. Yeah. So now I can start thinking about some of these, you know, like purples, and there's some greens in there as well. So I'm going to come back over here. I'll grab a little permanent green #1. I'm going to make a little puddle right over here. I don't need it. Wow, that's really dried out. Nice little puddle there. And I'm going to come back in, I think, in some spots where I feel like I want a little green still. Like down in here, that may be a little too much that I've got in there. So we'll just put in a little hint of green in a few spots. Just with this permanent green number 1. Any light, you know, if you've got a grass green or something like that, any kind of light green will be fine. Just a little bit down in there. Maybe even some over in here. Just that last hint of summer. A few trees that haven't, you know, not all the leaves have turned yet. And then I'm going to move into, come back over here so you can see. I think I'm going to move into a little permanent magenta. I'm just going to grab that here. I picked up a little of that red, but that's okay. So I've got a little permanent magenta there. And I want to add a little of that. Now, as I add that to the green, that should actually make kind of an interesting little bit of a gray as well. So I want some of that down in here, I think. So I put some down. Now I clean my brush out, and I'm just going to use water. And that'll just start to gray out some of that green. It's still got that green in it, but it's also a little more, you know, a little less bright green. Yeah. So maybe even a little, I've got a little peacock blue over here in my palette right here. I'm going to pick up a little of that and plop that down in here, I think. This bottom portion is dry enough where I don't need to worry about it. Put a little up in there so it's a little gray. Let me move that back over right away. And we're still, really, this is still kind of that first wash because it's just these kind of abstract colors that we're putting down. That, here maybe. But this gives that little bit of, this will end up giving a little bit of that depth. Let's see, let's come in with a little bit more of this permanent yellow deep here. I don't feel like it came down kind of low enough into here. I want some of that. Plus that got really hard edge on it, so I'm just going to kind of scrub that a little bit, soften that hard edge that I don't care for. And then I can come back in with a little of that violet, that permanent magenta down in here, just to start to darken some of this area. That's actually going to get fairly dark eventually. This will come in. Yeah. And then I can move back into some of this peacock blue as well. But you see how it turns into this nice, interesting gray. Actually, I think I picked up a little Andrew's turquoise, but that's okay. That's peacock. Okay. Bring that down and start that in this kind of shadow area, which has a little green in it as well. The grasses haven't quite turned. Let's see, I'm going to come in with a little more of that violet, you know, here. And maybe a little royal blue. I'll pick up a little royal blue and drop that in down here. It's not quite, I'm not quite ready to go that dark yet, but if I drop some in, it's just another little bit of a color variation. So we'll grab a little royal blue. If you don't have royal blue, Prussian blue, or Antwerp blue, or indigo, any of those kinds of blues would work. And the reason I'm kind of coming up here and softening that line is I don't want it to be just a sharp line, straight line going across. I want it to kind of have a bit of jaggedness to it. You know, I want it to have some places where it's overlapping the lighter color, and the lighter color is coming down into it. Yeah, so I kind of want to continue that. What I do want, though, I also want, there's a little bit, so even though this is a fairly dark bush, it starts off with a little bit of, highlight up in here, because it's whatever this shrubby, scrubby stuff is. So it has a bit of that glow at the top. I'm gonna let that dry for a second. I didn't use a lot of water. I just picked up a little permanent yellow deep and plopped it in there, but not a lot of water. So there is water, obviously, or it wouldn't be flowing, but puddle right there. But it's not super wet, you know. It's somewhere between dry brushing and regular washes. So let me grab some of that permanent yellow green, or no, permanent green number 1. I'm sorry, losing my train of thought. I think the heat's kind of making my brain. I don't know. This whole week and last week, just with the heat, has been wacky. So that was permanent green number 1. And then I just picked up a little bit more of that blue, just to plop down a little bit of shadow down in here. I want that to kind of blend into that bush. It'll get darker later, but I don't want to go too dark too fast. I'm going to add a little permanent magenta in there as well. Down in there, we'll get some of this kind of stuff. There is a little bit of another, like, not really. I'm gonna grab a little. I grabbed a little azo yellow. That's what this is right here. That one. Again, permanent yellow deep, or permanent, or lemon yellow, whatever you've got, will be fine. I am going to put a little bit of a, there's a little bit of a highlight that I kind of like down in here, where that's kind of picking up some of, there's kind of a shadow, but then there's a little bit more of this grassy stuff right next to the water that is catching some light. So I want to drop some of that in there before I get going too far on that. Maybe I'll drop in a little more. I'm going to grab a little hooker's green and drop in a little hooker's green in here as well. And then I kind of get rid of that shape, that line, that hard line that I've got there. Make this look a little more bushy, shrubby, kind of spindly, feathery, I guess. That's the word I'm looking for. Okay, so that's probably, let's just soften that up a little bit. And now I want to come back in here and start doing that again. So I'm going to grab a little more of that peacock blue. I just put a little down, and that was really dry, so I really need to grab some water and soften that before it gets too muddy. Let's grab a little more. And now I'm just kind of shaping the top of that shrubby thing a little bit. I mean, I'm not too terribly worried about it yet, but let's go in and grab a little permanent magenta. Some spots. And then let's grab a little royal blue. We'll grab a little more of that royal blue as well. I know it's going to get kind of dark in there. So I put a little down, and now I've just cleaned my brush, and I'm moving this. I'm just going to kind of move this paint that's on the paper around a little bit. I want that to be a little jaggedy edge. You know, I don't want it too smooth a line, so I'm just going to kind of I'm not painting one smooth line. I'm making it jagged. Here I'm going to add a little more permanent magenta. And I want to soften some of this. I'm going to grab a little green number 1 and throw that in here as well, just to add a little dark element into that little grayer bit into some spots, just where those leaves maybe haven't quite changed. And then I need to soften it up. Oop. Might get a little far. Yeah. Splattering some water there. I think I'm going to work a little bit on this kind of bluish. I'm assuming it's a Russian olive because it's that blue-gray. Russian olives sure are pretty, but it's too bad they're invasive. Kind of take over. But that's, I think, kind of what this is. And this may end up kind of being where I want my area of interest to be, I kind of think. I didn't really plan it out, but everything's kind of leading me over towards this. And this being so different from everything around it, I think will end up being that area of interest. So I'm going to use a little, just a real thin wash, mostly water, of lemon yellow. So I'll show you what I'm doing here. I've got just a little bit of lemon yellow right here that I picked up. And then I've got a whole lot of water. So it's really a thin wash, just mostly water, very little color. And I'm going to come in and just add a few highlights in here with that. Not a lot, just a little bit. So I've just got a little bit of that. And then I'm going to grab some peacock blue. And again, I want a fairly thin wash, mostly water to start with. And I'm going to start putting some of that in here too. And that's going to be that kind of start of that gray-green kind of look that you get with the Russian olives. Got that kind of going on here. I think I want a little violet, so I'm going to get a little permanent magenta. And just throw that down in here. That's a little bit much, obviously. So I now need to soften that. That's better. More of that blue. I just want a little bit of that lemon yellow still in there. Let's come back to it. Got blue right there. And just a bit more of the violet. And I'm kind of pulling it down in, you can see, I'm pulling it down in, forming some kind of brushy kind of things. Down in here, maybe a little more of that peacock blue. Later here in a bit, I'll start adding some darker blues as well. But I kind of want to get this kind of laid in there. Just a bit of that violet up in here. Just for some color variation. And I know this is looking very similar to this, but that's all right. Yeah. So that's starting to feel a little bit like trees, and I mean, this right now could be anything, but not necessarily a river. A little blob of water right there. Let's see. Maybe even a little, I'll add a little opera in here. Just as some variation up in here. I keep kind of leaning back to look at it from a bit of a distance. Okay. So this, I let that kind of stay light there for a bit because there is a bit of a light, there's a bit of light that kind of comes through and it's caught by this. So I'm just going to plop some of that in and let that dry before I get too crazy. And all that is really just, I don't know if you can kind of see that. It's really just a wee bit of orange right in there. I'm going to let that dry because I don't want it to disappear. I want some of it to be there, and then I want the darks kind of on top of it. So I want that light orange kind of in there, but then there's going to be a fair amount of dark and some reds and stuff down in there. Let's see. I'm liking that so far. Sometimes you never know, though. Okay, so I'm going to come in with a little. I think I'm going to use a little Scarlet Lake. Like a permanent red would be fine. Even if you didn't have, red, alizarin crimson would work. And I'm just going to put in a little. I think I'm going to switch to a smaller brush for a second. I'm going to grab my number 6. And put in a little red. Now that that's dried just a little bit, I got a little bit much right there. But that's all right. It's dried just a little bit, so I can put some of this Scarlet Lake red along here, which that also will end up mostly going away as well, because there's going to be a fair amount of dark right in there. I'm going to bring some of it over here too, I think. I can kind of get this little bit of dark whatever going. with a little of that. I'm not too worried about it looking like anything in particular. It's just really some color. Maybe I'll put in some more of that permanent magenta as well in a few spots. I do want to kind of make this look a little grassy like. So we'll just kind of pull that up. I don't know if you can see what I did there. Really, all that is just pulling my brush along like that, and now I'm going to go back in and soften some of that. I don't want it quite as hard, but I do want that hint of that shape in there. I think I'm going to bring in a little more. I kind of left this spot white. I think I want a little bit more lemon in there, or yellow. Yeah, lemon yellow right in there. And actually, that's kind of worked out. That was a little mistake there, or accident. But that running into that Scarlet Lake has made kind of an interesting kind of mix of color right there. Yeah. So, a little permanent magenta and Scarlet Lake all through in there. Sorry about that. Somebody tried to call me. Oh, now I got to read. Ah. There we go. Sorry about that. Get that back in the cradle. Nope. Yeah. I wish I could put it on airplane mode or do not disturb or something, but it won't let me do that because the Wi-Fi doesn't seem to want to work that way. Or not the, yeah, the Wi-Fi. I don't know why. I've used Wi-Fi in an airplane before with it on airplane mode, but it doesn't want to connect to Zoom for some reason, which is really annoying. Maybe because it thinks it's using cellular data or something. All right. Let's see what we've done here. Too many electrical cords here. Get in there. Trying to adjust the light so I had fewer shadows on there. But... Okay. All right. So I think, yeah, that's pretty good. That's pretty dry. I really like this texture that's formed right here. That was luck. That was not skill.
Yes, it was.
It was. I'm pretty sure that was luck, but yeah. So let's see here. I'm going to trying to decide what I kind of want to work on. I think because this is kind of, I think, going to be. It seems weird to be right, close to the edge, but I think this is kind of where I want my area of interest to be. There's going to be some nice contrast from this tree to this tree, and in here. So I think I'm gonna focus on this area for a while. I've got this kind of laid out the way I need it to be. So now I want to kind of deal with adding dimension and depth and stuff like that. So this is pretty dry. I'm okay with that. And what I'm going to do, I think I'm going to stick with this. Well, I'm going to move to my number 8 brush. So it's just a wee bit bigger, but I still have it's small enough that it's not too bad. But how did that get so low? I guess I zoomed in. I used the bendy feature and zoomed in too far. All right, I guess. Just kind of split the difference. And what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to take, I have this dark, I'm pretty sure this is some royal blue, but it's also probably got, heck, it could be Antwerp or Prussian. Let's look at that. Let's see. There's a little Prussian. Okay, it's not Prussian blue. I think it's just royal blue. That I may have mixed with something, but it's mostly royal blue, and I think that's what I'm going to stick with. I'm just going to reconstitute that puddle. Now I'm curious if it's might have maybe a little indigo. No, that doesn't really look like indigo either. I think it's royal. Okay. I like this dark blue that I've got here, so I'm just going to use it. Royal blue is a good one. If you don't have royal blue, again, Prussian blue, Antwerp blue, indigo would work. So I got a little. Actually, I think it's royal blue with just a hint of green in it, which is fine. And I'm going to come. I've got that, and then I also do want a little royal blue mixed with Hooker's green. So I'm going to grab a little of that. I've got a little Hooker's green right here, and then I can just take this blue, maybe even a little of this. Just drop some of that in there. So this is a nice dark green. Right now it looks black on my palette, but it really is a green, like a dark blue green. Yeah. So I want some of that. And I may even use a little, let's see, I think I'm going to go with a little permanent or quinacridone violet mixed with this blue. It doesn't matter. Again, it could be royal blue. It could be Antwerp blue. They'll all be fairly similar. Mine just happens to be royal blue for the most part, although there's a little of the other stuff in there because I didn't really clean that part of my palette. That's the great thing about these dark colors is they kind of float on top anyway. So, okay, so I'm going to pull that back over, and I think I'm going to start working on this this tree right here. This kind of blue green tree. which currently is, you know, a little lemon yellow, peacock blue, and some quinacridone or permanent magenta. And I'm just going to start with a little royal blue. And I'm just going to look at, okay, I probably have a little shadow over in this area. Maybe something like that. I'll soften this. I know that looks really dark, so don't panic. I'm going to soften that back up quite a bit. Basically, I was just getting it kind of in the areas that I wanted it. And then it would be a little dark down here. Do that much. And then I can soften it. You know what I'm saying? I can get it laid down and then move it around with the brush on the paper. I picked up some of that Hooker's Green Royal Blue mix as well. I'm going to put a little of that down in here. So maybe a little of that violet and blue. That may be a little too blue. A little more. Just a wee bit more purple. So we'll add a little of that down in there. Just to see what happens. Maybe a little bit of this green. And that's a little darker than I want, but I do want that green. So I put some down. Now I'm going to go back in with just a clean, wet brush and really soften that up. I might even come back in with a little more peacock blue just to add that kind of gray blue, get that back. Let's soften some of that up. So just pulling some of this down into the yellow. So I define the top of some of this shrubby stuff. Some of that I'll end up softening back up again. But right now, I don't mind it. Well, being kind of sharp right in this little spot here. Let's go back to the royal blue. The closer I get to this edge of the paper, I want to now start looking at just softening that. I don't want that sharp edge. So that needs to be softened. Just pick some of that back up. Pick some of that up. And really that's just showing that stuff's back, in there, but it's not that sharp of a shape. I want this to start to get blurry the closer I get to the edge of the paper. Let's come in here with a little peacock blue again. And I completely changed the shape of this tree from what it was. It was just this kind of round lump, and I didn't really like that shape, so I made it different. Come back with a little more. No, let's do that. So I was trying the purple, and I think what I want is the green. So I want to add just a little bit where I lighten that back up. I want to add a bit more dark back in. But anyway, I completely changed the shape. So at this point, I'm kind of looking at my sketch and knowing that I have some dark over here. I can even pop over and kind of look at the photo if I wanted to, although I don't, at this point, don't really use it a lot because it's just really there for suggestions in color usage and general shapes. But every now and then I'll peek at it. But I know this is a fairly dark kind of bush with these outer areas here being a little lighter. Got maybe a little too dark right there. So we're just going to soften that up just a skosh. And come in with a little of that blue violet that I mixed. Plop a little bit down in there just for some color variation. I know on camera that kind of looks black almost, but it's really a violet right in there. Same with right here. Now let's see, I can see a little, turning around and looking at my screen, I can see a little violet in there. This is kind of a straight line that I don't care for, so I'm just going to see if I can get it to stop being quite as straight. That's a very dark little blob there that I don't really want to be that blobby. Yeah, that's not too bad though. Yeah, I've got this kind of bushy, shrubby, scrubby, not what's the feathery, that's the word I'm looking for. Kind of feathery stuff going on here. And that's starting to read a little bit like that. I think I kind of want to pull this, I've got this, I didn't really draw it this way, but I kind of feel like I need to pull this tree down into here a little bit. So I'm going to, let me grab a little peacock blue, maybe just kind of, this feels like it needs to come down a little bit more in there. Maybe a little of that blue-green that I mixed up. I just felt like it really needed to come full circle around. So that's all I did was take that peacock blue and a little of and put some of that down, and then I put in a little of the permanent or the royal blue Booker's green mix. Got a little royal blue quinacridone violet that I'm gonna plop in as well, just down here. That feels like it's too big a shape. It's all very similar. I'm just gonna bring that down in there. and get it to run back up into this. Yeah, that's kind of looking like that, like it might be a Russian olive or something. If I really wanted to kind of gray it up, I could grab a little bit of sap green and drop a little bit of that in there, because that's just like an earthier green. I don't know if you can tell what that did, but maybe if I really kind of get down in there with the light, you can kind of see. So I added just a little bit of sap green, and that was kind of an interesting. So any kind of earthy green that you have, even a little olive, or I'm just going to add just a bit of that in there, just to give it that earthy kind of Russian olive kind of look. Just to have a little of that in there. I don't need a lot, I just got a few little spots that kind of spread out. But I feel like that helped out quite a bit, just adding that little bit of that earthier green. And I'm going to dry it real quick. It's pretty warm in here, and I have all the fans going. But I want to dry that a little faster. He did the tape up, and it started doing it. Yeah, I kind of like that shape. It still kind of mimics the original a little bit. It had this kind of stuff. I'm going to soften this up a little bit, just so it looks like it kind of feathers into that background just a bit. And you get just a bit of a lost edge. But I like that shape that's going on there. I think just by adding this little bit of something else going on there, that helps. Now, I know this is going to be fairly dark, and all of this is going to be fairly dark. This is going to be fairly dark. Let's see here. So I kind of want to work my way out a little bit. So I am going to come over in here and add a little bit, just to knock that back a little bit. It'll get, I think, a little blue spray when I'm done, but I want to come in with a little permanent magenta back in here and add. Right now, I'm not super crazy about the shape that I've just painted, but let's see if I can kind of zoom in a little bit on that for you. I don't really like those shapes that I kind of painted, but I want to knock that back, and I might even grab a little of that violet that I mixed up, that darker violet, and throw a little of that in there. because it is fairly dark on that side of the tree. And I like that bit of dark. Let me, let's see, I'm going to grab a little opera, which is actually mixed with, I didn't really clean my brush. There we go. And I'm just going to add that on top of and kind of work that in up in here, just to light or darken this tree up just a bit. It'll end up getting darker later when I kind of spritz some blue around the edge, but I don't want it all dark. So let me just lift some of that back up. But I do want a fairly good dark kind of right in here. That. Then I'm going to grab just a little quinacridone. No, I want to just use permanent magenta. I'm going to grab a little permanent magenta and drop that in here. And then, you know, I've got some kind of sharp edges right there, although it's a little hard to see because of the, it's a little hard to see because there's a glare right there. And I think I'm going to change this shape up a little bit and just bring that down like that, but then soften that just a little bit. Right, yeah. Let me bring in, I think I'm going to take a little pyro orange and put it up in here. You can see I just put like 3 little dots of it in there. That's like not a magic number or anything. I'm just putting a couple of, basically I just put a little bit down and then I'm moving it around with a clean, wet brush. So, this all will kind of disappear later anyway. But yeah, I think I still need a little bit of lemon yellow up in here. We'll just, not real crazy about the shape of this tree. That's why I keep kind of working on it. I'm changing it a little bit. I'm not sure I like it any better now, but it is different than it was. Add a little water, see what happens. Get those things to kind of run a bit and make some texture. That'll be all right. I'm going to dry that real quick. Cool thing is where I feel like maybe it's a little too much, I can go back in and lift some. There's a little more pyro orange, just felt like I needed to change that up a little bit right there. Before that was totally dry. Okay, so enough of that. That's a weird shape right there. Now I'm going to start over on this tree. And I'll work away, you know, over a little bit, and then I think I'm going to come back down here. Keep softening. Keeps forming sharper lines that I want. Okay. So I want kind of a reddish orange. I'm going to go back to some of that Scarlet Lake, I think. And use that. Again, that's this kind of orange. Or no, that was Pyro Orange. I just mixed Scarlet Lake in with Pyro Orange. That's kind of fun. There we go. That's mostly Scarlet Lake now. Wasn't paying attention to what I was doing. I want a little of that. I want to move this red over. So I have a little more space. So I'm going to take this Scarlet Lake, and I'm going to start thinking about some of this this foliage in here that's a little darker. And I'm just going to kind of, has a little too much water and not enough paint. Now I got a big mix. I'm just kind of thinking about where I want these darks to be. I know I want, this is a dark red, which is actually, the value is a little darker than this little light wash of lemon yellow and peacock blue that I created over here. So I want some of that. I think I want to mix in a little more orange with that. So I'm going to grab a little permanent yellow orange and drop in some of that as well. And then pick some of that back up. But you can see that that is now going to push this forward. Even though this is a fairly dark tree, because I have this, value change with the Scarlet Lake against this lighter value of blue and green. And now I grabbed a little permanent magenta there, and I threw that in. Because of that value change, it's going to really make this tree pop forward. Now, I don't want to get too muddy or anything like that, so I have to be kind of careful. Scarlet Lake, I think there's going to be, and I'm thinking about tree shapes. So I'm thinking about the shapes of these trees as well, not just this tree, but now I need to also think about, okay, well, this is a shadow back in here on this cottonwood. Let's see. Now I am gonna move to the permanent magenta. I'm thinking about those. This shadow area back in here. But I want some of I want some of these highlights to stand out as well. I'm just kind of making up shapes that feel and look somewhat like leafy, bunches of leaves on a tree. Maybe there's a kind of a shadow in this area. That. That. And I'm not too worried, I'm painting over where I have that trunk drawn, but I'm not too worried about that because I want, I switched back to the permanent magenta. I was using Scarlet Lake there for again, but I'm going to paint those dark trunks over a lot of this. Come in and then it'll stop and it'll peek back out and then so it's like it's covered up with some leaves and stuff in spots. So I want to I want to give myself the opportunity to do that. So I haven't really worried about where I have that trunk. Obviously, if I was painting a lighter tree, a tree with a lighter bark than these cottonwoods, I would tape that off, but I would break up the tape. I would cut parts of that tape back out so that I could have that kind of broken look of tree trunks. I moved over on it, but I never got it back over all the way. And again, this is fairly dark, but I can come back in and I can lift some back out. But it's not that dark. I'm pretty happy with that. I don't want to overwork this, so I'm going to kind of stop there, I think. Let's see. I do want to, now that I'm coming down in here, I want to pull in some of that dark violet that I mixed up. If you recall, it's this dark violet. It was quinacridone violet and royal blue. I am going to add just a bit more violet to it, so it's just a little less blue. And I'm going to bring that back over down in here. Maybe it's not really in the photo, but maybe in my world, there's more gray little trees or something down in here. It could be Russian olives. It could be just about anything. Just casting a shadow. So I want that kind of purple, that a little darker. We'll come in with a little royal blue as well in some spots. As I get down here, I want to kind of, again, make this look like it's tall grasses and stuff right in there. So just kind of dry brushing along that edge. Let's see, I'm going to grab a little, oops, clean my brush up. I'm going to grab a little permanent magenta now and get that to kind of blend into there, so it's a little less purple to yellow. I want a little bit of a transition in there. Put a little of that up in there. And that's permanent magenta that I'm using. And I'm just making a variety of strokes with my brush. I'm sometimes I'll come in and oops, can't see that. I'll kind of make little tick marks like this, and then other times I'll come in and I'll rub. This is sketchbook, so it's not watercolor paper, so it's not going to work quite right. I'll do this kind of motion, and I kind of dry brush that, and it gives me some different textures. So sometimes little tick marks, then I'll maybe come in with a cleaner brush and soften that. And then other times I'll just come in and kind of rub the brush, even getting it to kind of see how it kind of breaks apart and has that kind of feathery look, like just doing little bits like that. That's what I'm doing down here, just to kind of give it a little bit of texture. That blob of blue right there. So I don't want to overwork this, so I'm going to stop on that. How are you guys doing? Are you guys doing all right?
No. I'm working hard at trying to stay caught up. But I'll catch.
Do you want me to?
Oh, I'll
Do you
catch
want
up.
me to give you a second to catch up?
Oh, you go ahead and I'll catch up on the video. I'm still working
Okay.
around.
Okay. Janie, how about you? You doing all right?
I rubbed out the right side of my picture once, and I'm at this point letting everything dry because I don't have a dryer right here. So
Oh, okay.
I'm not happy with mine, but you know how I am.
Yeah.
At this stage, I'm probably never happy with what's going on.
Well, and it's hard in class to get something that looks really great because you're trying something, even if it's something similar to what you've done before. And I'm cruising along here, and you guys are trying to keep up, so it's not unheard of. I know that when I'm taking classes, I rarely get anything that I like out of it. It's only after the class when I've assimilated things that or practiced things that
Right.
But I can give you guys a minute here and
I don't need it, but
okay.
if Jeannie does, that's fine.
Oh, no. You go ahead, Michael.
Okay. I just want to make sure. Okay, so that's I don't want to overwork this, and it's approaching that for me. So I'm going to stop. I'm really happy. I'm kind of happy with that texture. The color variation is pretty good. It looks a little bit better in person than it does on screen, but but that's the way it goes. So now I'm going to come back around here, and I'm going to work a little bit on this. Again, I don't want to overwork this too much. So I want to be fairly careful. But I don't want to be so locked in. I don't want to be locked into anything. I want to be pretty loose. One thing I do know is I want a little bit more green in some of this area. I just feel like I need just a bit. So I'm going to come in with a little permanent green number 1. And I'm going to put a little green in a few spots here where this grass hasn't quite, maybe we've had a few cold evenings or weeks of cold evenings, whatever, and the grass is starting to die back, but there's still a little bit hanging on in some spots. I'm going to put just a little green down in here. And you can see, it's not very much, mostly water. Maybe a little bit more down in here as well. Maybe even a little kind of up in these taller grasses or shrubby, feathery shaped foliage. Just a little up in there. Just to kind of give it a little more, just a little less, a little more life, a little more vibrancy. The green against the orange and yellow will really help that pop. I'm going to let that dry because I want to kind of keep that as pure as possible. And then I know I have kind of some stalks that they're so it's fairly light up here, and then it's going to work down into some of this redder area where I have this interesting texture. And I want to try and save some of that texture, but I do need to add a little bit of that dark. So I'm going to start off with a little permanent green, yellow deep, because this is permanent yellow lemon up there. And I want to just kind of bring in some of this like that. But then I'm going to really, I kind of painted it on in these kind of streaky, grassy shape kind of things. But then I'm going to pick some of it back up. Just add a little more variation there. And then if I come back in and I use a little permanent yellow orange down in here, that'll start to kind of mimic the grasses that are they're almost red down towards the bottom, and then they get real yellow as they go up to the top, maybe where the seed heads are. Let's see, I'm going to grab a little Scarlet Lake as well down in here. I don't want to totally lose this texture that I've got here. Excuse me. Here, so I have to be a little careful. It'd be so easy to actually paint over that. Maybe I'll just grab a little permanent red as well. Put that in there. And this can kind of come over red as we get closer to the edge of the paper here. Maybe I'll use a little. Might use a little quinacridone rose, or if you have rose madder or permanent rose, any of those kinds of things. If you don't, again, alizarin crimson is very close to some of that. It's not quite as bright, but I want to add just a little hint of this in a few spots and see if I can't get some, excuse me, get some interesting texture. Just soften that as we go down. And I'm going to also add in a little of that violet, just to give it a little bit of that real dark down in there. Not too much, but just a little, just to kind of darken that along that. And then I can kind of, as I get down in here, I can kind of give it a little bit of a, let's see, can you see that? I don't know if you can see that. Let's see. Basically, I'm just coming in and adding a little bit of a jaggedy, brushy shape to the bottom there, so it's little short grasses and stuff down in here. Adding a little orange in a few spots to just kind of let's see, let me grab a little more of that Connect on rows. Drop some here. Well, that's still a little wet. Maybe a little more of that permanent yellow deep. Not too much though. Again, I don't want to get to where I'm overworking this. I'm going to use a little pyro orange as well, I think. Just to add another little bit of color. I think that bright orange that then sort of lightens out to salmon peach. It's kind of an interesting color. Soften that back up. I don't want a line. I want that to kind of be a nice, even gradient from these more red oranges to the and purple, you know, up into that light. A little more of this violet color that I mixed up. Now I'm just kind of taking a look at it from a little bit of a distance. Oops. I was going to let you guys do the same. Look at it as a whole. Yeah. I got, you know, a little bit of, I want to bring in a little of this, I think, over in here as well. Not a lot, but just a little. And really, this is all I'm doing is kind of just using the tip of my brush and painting just a little bit of a, you know, it's really kind of like that. Let's see if I can. I'm just, you know, kind of. Sorry, my brush keeps. Basically, that's the kind of mark that I'm making. And then as I get down towards the bottom, I can soften it with just a little water. It doesn't work quite as well on the sketchbook paper. I can come down in here now with just water and soften that just a bit. But I add just a, you know, a hint of that shadow in there. I'm actually, you know, there are days when I'm not real pleased with stuff this early on, and this one's kind of working for me. I do feel like maybe this bit right here is a little too thick, so I want to divide it and shorten one of those little things. So that's really all I did there. I just, you know, I just took a little blue, really, and it probably should have been purple. I took a little, there we go, and I just divided that up and shortened this left-hand side just a bit. Just to change that up. It was just it felt a little thick. Now it's two kind of thinner pieces. Nobody else will probably ever notice that, but me. Yeah. I'm liking how that's starting to feel like this is a little flat. You know, kind of it flattens out as we get closer to the water, and this is feeling very vertical, like it's a bunch of grasses and tall grasses and stuff. And as we get short, you know, closer to the water, it's shorter. I'm liking how that's working. I like this contrast that's going on right here. And I like the contrast that's going on right here. Okay. I am going to come in as I, you know, after we do some of this, the river, I'm going to come in and add, there's a little bit of, you know, kind of reddish stuff around the edge that I really like, around the edge of this shoreline here. And I'm going to add a little bit of that too. But I want to wait till I get the water in there to do that. Now, I've got a fairly straight line here that I'm not too crazy about. And I want to start, I think, working on this area a little bit more in here. So I'm going to start off, and I think, you know, I'm going to push it kind of dark, especially down in here against the water pretty quickly. So I'm going to come in, I think right now, with a little royal blue first. And I'm just going to, you know, kind of come in just along there. Let me just, I'm going to just kind of bring that in along there. So I've got, you know, a little royal blue. There's a little kind of hint of something there like that. I'm going to now switch over. I think I'm going to switch to that violet, that dark blue violet that I mixed. So royal blue and quinacridone violet. Let's dry it up. And we can mix a little more. There we go. Too much water. So we'll just kind of bring some of that in. This is fairly dark right up in here against the water. The water is going to be actually fairly light right there. There's going to be some nice contrast. So that's kind of cool. Let's see. And this kind of continues. I think I'll switch over into that royal blue Hooker's green mix.
What blue did you start with?
Royal blue.
Well, okay.
Yeah, royal blue. But if you don't have royal blue, like a Prussian blue or a Antwerp blue, you know, those will work. Even if you took a little ultramarine or indigo would be all right. Even if you took just a little ultramarine blue and mixed in a little tiny bit of Hooker's green or something to it, that would be all right too if you don't have royal blue. So that kind of comes in. And I know that I sketched a little bit of, there's just a little bit of dark kind of going along, and then it kind of peters out. You know, it's just a tiny little bit of a shadow. And then this is all fairly, I'm using the green, the Hooker's Green Royal Blue mix. Right now, and I think I'm actually going to switch back now to a little royal blue, just plain old royal blue. This is all kind of in shadow over in here, so. There's just like a little bit of light kind of peeking through in some spots. And then peeking through over here. Switch over to that violet. So it's quinacridone violet and royal blue mixed. A little of that over in here. And then now I need to kind of pull that slightly lighter. You know, I like this dark that I've got there, but I want some of that, but not quite as dark to come over here. Now that on camera looks a little darker than it is, but it will dry a lot lighter than that. So I have this kind of shadow coming over where some of this taller grass is creating shadow. So that was that violet still. And now I'm going to move into the just plain old royal blue. And it's okay if it gets a little darker over here. And then I want, it doesn't, well, it does actually. I want this kind of dark against a bit of this tree here. So I want to again create a bit of contrast between this tree and this stuff back here. And it'll help once again push that forward. And I want to change the shape. Up here, I don't want a real strong line. I'm just going to add water and then let that kind of soften out a little bit. And if it's a little too much still, if it's going to dry with a fairly sharp line, I'm continue to kind of work that to soften that up. Let's see. If you want a little more I'm going to come in with that violet again because I have some violet here already. And I want a little bit, I want a little bit more dark in a couple of spots, maybe like right there, maybe just one spot. Well, no, maybe just a little bit more kind of in there. Now, that is too much. I'm actually going to switch over. I realized I was using a larger brush. I'm going to switch over back over to my number 6 brush. Just to kind of get this, because it's such a small little area. So just added just a bit more of a dark. And while I'm at it, I think this is, I want this to be a little bit softer. So I'm going to soften that. And then before it can dry, I want to add a little pyro orange to that. Very light, you know, or watery kind of a wash. I'm going to grab a little pyro orange just to kind of make that a little darker as well, a little more vibrant right in here. That orange against that purple and stuff is really, really going to pop. And it doesn't necessarily have to look like, you know, well, and I can flatten it back out. Right now, it doesn't quite look like the kind of pastury area that it did in the photo, and that's okay. But I think what I need to do is once this dries, I need to pick a little bit of that. I need to kind of come in and flatten this out just here. I need to bring these darks down a little bit. But I'll wait till that dries a little bit before I do that. And I think just to kind of ease that transition, I'm going to grab a little Scarlet Lake as well. And if it never looks quite like that pastury kind of flat area, it's not really a pasture, but you know, kind of a clearing, that's okay too. I don't mind if it doesn't quite look the same as the photo. I mean, this is my painting. If it looks more like short trees and stuff, I'm okay with that. I'm adding a little bit more pyro orange over here in a couple spots. I kind of want to soften this up as well. I got a little harsh right there. Not quite that sharp an edge. So just kind of went in and softened that. Yeah. And again, like this is a pretty dark little area here, and that's okay. But I can come back in I am going to knock back some of these little light areas where I didn't paint. They were a little too bright. I can come back in and add some texture just by lifting some out of that once it's completely dry. I'm not sure yet if I need to do that, but I definitely can. Just step back and take a look at it again. You guys do this. I'm not quite used to the setup yet, and I don't know the limitations of that. I do feel like that's probably a little too dark, and that's okay. I can lighten some of that once it's dry.
Yeah, it really pops out in a way you don't necessarily want it to.
Yeah, yeah. And so this is a nice, it's still too wet, but what I can do is hit it with an hair dryer. That's good. And I can either, I can either spritz it like I've done in the past with a spray bottle, or I can just I can come in and just draw some little scribbly squiggles on it. And I'm gonna try that first, just see what happens. Let's do that, and then let's see. Dry rag here. Yes, I do. Let that sit for a second. And then blot it up.
Oh, that looks good from here.
Yeah, so that just lightened it up just a little bit. Maybe I do want to put a little, let's get that working. Little spritz of the water on there as well. And I can go back in and, that's a pretty big open area. Now it's a pretty big light area. But I can change it. I can change that shape now by adding a little more dark on there if I choose. Yeah. So that made it look a little more organic with a little blobs, but
It almost,
I'm not. What's that?
it almost looks like sagebrush that way.
Yeah. I don't, and that's cool. I mean, that's a okay thing to look like. I don't know what it is could be salt cedar, could be scrub, who knows what that is, but yeah. I can break up, so this is an awfully large blob of light. So that seems like a lot of dark, but what I can do is just knock it back just a skosh with just a bit of violet, not too much. Now that looks dark again, but that's because it's wet. Yeah. So just added a little bit of violet in there just to help tie it in, because it was awfully green. I had gotten rid of most of the violet when I lifted that. So. But yeah, I like how that looks now. That's not too bad. Oh, what did I do?
My favorite part of the whole piece so far is what you call the Russian olive.
Oh, this area right here?
Yep.
Yeah, that's my favorite part too.
Especially with the tall grassy plant in front of it.
Yeah, I like that as well. All right, so what do I want to do next?
Well, you've only got about 20 minutes.
Oh, okay. Well, I don't want to get too far into something. Why don't I kind of do a little bit more of this dark here, because this needs to be pushed back quite a bit. And I kind of screwed up the shape. I want a little bit of a bank kind of coming down. So I think I'm going to come in and kind of first lift some of this out right here. So I won't get too involved in anything, but we'll just kind of. Ann, do you want me to look at y'all's before?
No, not mine.
Okay. So what I want to do is I want to kind of. I really liked, and real quickly I'll show you what I'm talking about. I really like. I have the photo open. And I really like this kind of shape here. I don't know why,
Yeah.
but I like that. It kind of shows that how that comes down, and then there's a bit of a drop off to the lower part of the river bank,
Yeah.
and how this is probably higher over here, but this area is a little lower. I like that shape, so I want to kind of fix that. I don't really have that here. And part of it is because this dark over here isn't there. Well, I'll just paint it somewhere.
You know, Jeannie might want to show you hers. I don't know whether she's still listening.
Yeah.
Yes, I have you on mute. Yes, I'm still listening, but no, I'm not quite ready.
Not quite ready. That's fine. That's fine. We'll do it on Thursday.
Oh, is Thursday going to be a makeup class?
Yeah.
I won't be able to make that. I'm going to a festival.
Well, darn it.
Yeah. But you're going to record, right?
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. So I'm gonna kind of bring in this little bit of dark down in here. I really want some of that. And then some of that will turn into, some of this. This is just royal blue that I'm using right now. And then I might switch up here to a little Hooker's Green royal blue mix. Some of this is going to end up turning into those trunks of these trees. So it's not a lot of dark. And then right here, I want this to get soft as we go up. So I want a fairly dark right there, but then I want it to kind of soften up. Soften quite a bit as we go up. And let's see. Over here on the other side, I think I'm going to start with a little of this green right in here. So, and then maybe some of the violet, that quinacridone violet royal blue mix. Oops, that's a little too much royal blue. I want to see what I'm doing right here. I'm remixing some of that, and I got a little too much royal blue in there, so I'm just adding a little more quinacridone violet. Get a little of that down in here. Almost took me too long. That dried while I was softening that. And I want this to kind of,
You
go
sent the
into-
original picture, didn't you, last week?
I did, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it should be in the emails. If you don't
Yeah.
have it, I can resend it.
No, I'm pretty sure I do.
I think it's in that chain of
What's
email.
that?
In the
Yeah,
Just look for it in the chain.
I will.
Yeah. So a little violet, now back to a little green. Soften some of this edge. Some of it I don't mind being a sharp edge, but some of it I want to be a little softer. Before this dries too much, I need to soften that out. Let's come back with some royal blue down in here. And this is all fairly dark down in here. Let's go back to some of this violet. And I'm actually going to drop in a little opera down in here. Even though this is dark, I want, little pops of light in some spots. So right now this is looking kind of weird, but once we get some trunks painted in, I'm going to move over. I'm going to switch back to this green here. Once we get, trunks painted in and different things, it'll start making a little more sense. Let's see, let's come in. I'm going to use a little Antwerp blue, I think. Well, it's very, and it's just a little, I don't even know how to describe it. It's not as bright as, it has slight green tint to it, but not like the green mix, the darker Hooker's green. But it's not quite as blue as, say, the royal blue, because it's got just a slight hint of green. Prussian blue is very similar. They're nice dark blues, but they have just a hint of green in them. Which, doesn't always read like that. Let's see, I'm going to switch back over, I think, to this violet. Mm-hmm.
Michael, I've got to cut out. My battery is almost out.
Okay.
So I will see you next Monday.
Yeah, next Monday. And I'm going to try and post this video tomorrow if I can.
Okay.
So people can watch it before Thursday. And then if they need to, and then we'll do a makeup class on Thursday. I'll record that. I'll get it posted on Friday.
Okay.
And then, yeah, we'll meet up on Monday.
Well, I'll try and work on it before class on Monday because I'm away Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and coming home Sunday. So.
Okay. Well, we may, if we end up finishing it, it's a, you'll have a little more time. But...
Yeah. All right. Good night.
Okay, good night. Have a good rest of your week.
Thank you.
Michael, is it just you and I now?
It is.
Oh my goodness.
I don't know where everybody is tonight.
Yeah.
I don't know if they forgot or. I know several people emailed me. I know Kathy, both Kathys said that they were going to be out of town, and Sonia was out of town this week. So.
Yeah. Lots going.
I don't know. Yeah. I don't know where everybody else is. Okay, so that's kind of a hard line, which it kind of is a hard line, but I don't want it quite that hard. So I'm just going to kind of come in and soften that now with just a clean brush. Periodically, I need to wash it out, and then I'm just going to pick up some of that so that the line is not quite as sharp.
Okay.
And then this kind of comes in more like that. Yeah. So that's that Antwerp blue.
Is it more like peacock?
Well, it's like maybe a darker version of peacock blue.
Okay. Because I don't have that in my.
Yeah, it's. I'll show you. I don't know if it shows up that well. Oops. Too many chords. Let's see. So this here is peacock.
Okay.
You can kind of see it's kind of lighter.
Yeah.
And then Antwerp is this, which it's a little darker. And if you took some peacock blue and added a little ultramarine to it or something, you might get something fairly.
Just a bit of indigo. Maybe
Yeah,
just
you could even add just a tiny bit of indigo to your peacock blue, and you get something very similar.
Okay.
And it's okay if it's slightly different. I mean, it doesn't have to be exact, but
Okay.
But yeah.
Okay, now, which one were you drawing now?
I was just kind of adding more darks into this wet area here and letting it kind of feather out. I've got quite a bit of water up in here. And so I'm just kind of letting it feather out. I want some darks in there, but I don't want them too dark. Plus, I still need to kind of work on what's going on. I'm going to have to think about that little spot there for a bit. And then I've got kind of this, and I think I just switched over to royal blue, but any of these, it's blue over some yellow, so it's kind of giving a green tint anyway. Let's see, this kind of comes up back in here. These start to meet, these darks. And there's just a few little spots where where some of this orange kind of peeks through. Now I'm going to switch over to the violet, so that quinacridone violet royal blue mix. So any violet, even if you took royal blue and some opera if you have it, or you know, any of the violets. I'm just going to add. So that's kind of a blue violet. I think I want a little bit more violet. Permanent magenta or alizarin crimson mixed with royal blue would be nice. Would be a nice violet. Basically, I'm just kind of switching up these colors back here, so it's a little more interesting. It's not just one dark, you know, color. Come over here with a little of that violet. Little hint of some orangey stuff kind of poking through there. What will probably happen is I'm going to paint this over it like that. While that's wet, and then while that's wet, I'll kind of come back in. I'll come back in here in a second, and I'll lift some of that back out. So I'm just taking that and feathering that up now. Not like this line. I'm just going to real quickly kind of fix that. And I think I'd have a similar one right here. But now, while that's still wet, I can come in and I think I'm going to use this bigger brush. I'm going to use my number 8 round. Or actually, no, I'm not going to even do that. I'm going to use a piece of paper towel. And I'm just going to kind of, you can see I've kind of made this little kind of chisel shape. And I'm just going to kind of lift up some of that right in there. Show you. Basically, all I've done is kind of lift it back up with a piece of paper towel. You can use a piece of Kleenex. I just happen to have this piece of paper towel here. But you can see I've lifted some of that back out. I can even, if this isn't totally dry, I can soften that edge right there and do similar. So it's light, but it's not as light as it was.
Yes.
And it's not as dark as I ended up painting while that's still wet. Let's see. And then I don't want it to suddenly get dark on one side of that trunk. I have a tree trunk here, so I want to make sure that I pull this kind of slightly darker wash.
You can see the tree.
Yeah, the tree trunk will be darker in front of it, but I don't want it to be like dark tree trunk and then light. You know, I want that kind of. I don't want to call attention too much to that. It looked weird if I had this dark coming in, and then tree trunk, and then it was this vibrant, bright,
Yes.
bright color. And then this is just water. I'm softening some of these edges. Yeah, but that's starting to look. Let me come back down here and soften this a little bit more. That's starting to look kind of the way I want it to. Kind of fuzzy. There's clearly a shaft of sun.
I lost you.
You know, it's very fuzzy looking. Oops. Did the camera freeze up? Well, I guess I lost internet connection for a second.
Yeah, you
Sorry
did.
about that. Yeah. So you can see it's there, but it's a lot fuzzier and not as sharp. And then I still kind of have that bank. I'm not sure I'm crazy with it. I'm going to grab a little of that Antwerp blue color and just plop a little bit down right in here and let that kind of bleed in. Like so. I can always come back in while that's still wet. Yeah. And before this sharp gets too sharp or dry over here, I'm going to soften this because I think we'll have to come back next week, or not next week, on Thursday, and finish this up. So I want to soften this right here so I don't have a super sharp edge. Not that I couldn't soften it next week, but or I mean on Thursday, but I just want to soften it just a bit. Yeah, so I got to figure out something. I don't know. I'm not quite sure what's going on here. I don't know that I like that, but I got to figure out something there. But it's starting to kind of take shape.
I think it
But I
looks
think,
it looks really nice. Yours
oh,
does.
thank you. Thanks.
I tell you that I was in the artifacts and I looked at your artwork in there.
Yeah.
Did I tell you that?
Did you? I
For
think I have mentioned that. Yeah.
3 weeks, so probably not. But anyway, I was looking at it, and it is amazing what you have done in the the bigger frames, the bigger paintings.
Oh, thank you.
Some of the ones that you have taught us to do, but yours are amazing.
Oh, well, thanks.
I just really enjoyed looking at them. I wished I had money to buy them.
Well, that's okay as long as you enjoy looking at them.
But yeah, they're very, very good. And I especially enjoyed the windmill.
Oh, yeah.
Never finished, but that's all right.
Well, maybe we'll get to do that.
Yeah, I don't know why something happened and we never finished the windmill. We
That
started.
was when I caught.
Huh?
That was when I caught COVID.
Oh, okay, that was when. Okay, oh, that was fun. Yeah, because
Yep.
it was really good. I love that. I loved that it was long, rectangular. It was just amazing to look
Thank
at.
you.
Yeah. But anyway, it's 9 o'clock and you don't need any overtime because I know you don't get paid a lot. So,
Oh,
so, so I guess we can shut down for the evening.
all right. Yeah. So it's just the two of us.
All right.
Yeah.
One last-
And so, are you going to be here on Thursday?
Yes, I'm planning on it.
Yeah.
One
Okay.
last.
Cool.
I didn't get I didn't get the colors of the tree on the far right.
Colors of the tree.
The tree
On the
to the right of the what's it called? I call them monkey peanut trees. Yes, there to the right. Yes, the red that one.
This
I
it's the same. I started out with a little lemon yellow, which is actually now behind some of this stuff. So it was lemon yellow, and then I used permanent yellow deep, which is actually kind of what you're seeing up here, and some permanent yellow orange. But then I went in and I used some Scarlet Lake on there, which just red would be fine.
Okay,
And I used Pyro Orange, which if you don't have Pyro Orange, that's okay, but that's what I'm using there.
Okay.
Just a little red and some, but then I went in, this is not a alizarin crimson, it's just quinacridone, or I mean, it's permanent magenta, but if you don't have permanent magenta, alizarin crimson would be fine. And then I have some of that violet mix that I made. And then it's all really soft, so that first layer I let dry before I did this, so you can see that you can see the yellows and oranges showing through this darker stuff.
okay. All right. Okay, I got it. I'll do that now.
Cool.
Yeah. I'll
But
get
yeah, so that
Got it up.
it's a wash of like lemon yellow, permanent yellow deep, and permanent yellow orange, which are like cadmium orange and cadmium yellow, lemon, and cadmium yellow deep. I think those are all very similar. So if you have kind of a yellow, a medium orange, and a darker orange, that's what I did first. Kind of like this. I mean, it really was. It started off like this exactly. And then when I went over the top of it, I used Scarlet Lake. But again, alizarin crimson and some red for permanent magenta mixed with royal blue. That's what's down here.
Okay, got it.
Cool.
You're up.
All righty. Well, we'll see you on Thursday.
All right. Good night.
Good night.